Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Unplugged Grief Ministries podcast. I'm so glad that you have decided to join us. As I said earlier in one of my promotional, Betsy's here, and Betsy is an advocate with a lot of things that she helps people, not only with grief, but mental health and life as well. But we also got into a conversation that we wanted to share with you about not only being as a caregiver, but also we want to be able to educate our society how to properly, what's another good word? Teach you, educate you how to be an effective comforter so that it becomes the strength of the community when we know the proper way and understand it. So, Betsy, I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor, maybe the next 15 or 20 minutes, and then you and I can get into the conversation about the caregiving and everything else. So, folks, this is my friend
Okay.
Betsy. She's from New Jersey. And don't forget to tell them about your radio station. So, here's Betsy.
Thank you. Thank you, Dee, for having me on. I'm really honored. Hope that my connection stays good. I just want to show a picture of my husband, Matt. Can you see it? There you go. My husband, Matt, had early onset Alzheimer's, and that's how I became an advocate. Alzheimer's took a lot away, but I realized my gifts. And
I also, Betsy, I also have been caregiver for a lot of Alzheimer's patients as well. So I know exactly what you had been going through.
It's yes, it's tough. I had to fight from diagnosis to proper end of life treatment. I had to be an advocate. I'm very big on advocacy and education. But I'll give you a little background. I am a mom of an adult son, Josh, who has a cognitive disability. So I'm still a caregiver, just in a different way. And Josh was great with his dad. I have a support group, #Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement. Why did I name it that? Because if I didn't kick its butt, it was going to kick mine. And I had a mindset, I'm not letting this disease defeat me. And I was in a rabbit hole. I was thinking, how would the railroad tracks feel in the winter versus the summer? It scared me. And I went for therapy. I went for counseling. I highly recommend it. I'm a huge mental health advocate. And I will not go back into that rabbit hole again. I would never have left my family, but just the thought of that I was thinking, that scared me. Mm-hmm. So I started a support group with my friend Lori. She told me, Betsy, you need to do this. You need to start a support group. I was like, no, I can't do that. She says she can, and I'll help you. I always wanted someone to do an interview with me. I wanted to tell Matt's story. I promised Matt I would tell his story. And in 2018, Jeannie White, who's station manager of Passionate World Talk Radio Network, saw me in one of my videos, because I used to do videos in my car to raise awareness and to educate. Back way before people were doing it on Instagram, I was known as a crazy lady in the car doing my videos. And Jeannie interviewed me. She was starting a show for caregivers and asked me to speak weekly on her show, which I was shocked. And then after a year, Jeannie said, Betsy, you should have your own show. And I was like, no, I can't do that. I don't know how to interview people. And she said, you'll learn. And I did. My show is Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network. I'm on iHeart, Spreaker, Spotify, even on a terrestrial station down in Dallas, Georgia on Monday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern. I think it's WDJY. Or I'm not sure those initials, but it is, I am on there I could send you the link if you want a day afterwards. Excuse me. And my show is for anyone. I talk about a variety of topics: grieving, big on mental health, caregiving. I talk to CEOs, doctors, whatever the topic, I will cover it. I will talk about it, history. I want to provide people with resources that I wish I knew about when Matt was alive. And a lot of times we don't know about resources in our own backyard. I know I didn't. I interviewed someone who's a death doula and an elderly companion. She lives in the next town over. I didn't even know about her until a few months ago. I would have hired her for Matt had I had known. So I want people to know about resources that can help them have a better life, whether they're caregiving or just having a struggle. Because you know what, folks? There's a lot of people struggling now. There's a huge mental
Oh,
health
yeah.
crisis going on. I have been talking about mental health way before the pandemic. And I like to say, I've always been ahead of my time. Always. I talked about mental health for years. There's no shame in going for counseling. There's no shame in having to take in an antidepressant if that's what you need to get through. And you know what, Dee? I don't know about you, but I'll tell you what, when Matt was dying, how dare people tell us to be strong? That is crap. That is old school crap. Now, I'm a Jersey girl and I tell it like it is. Some people like it, some don't. I don't care. This is me, folks.
That's
You
good,
know, we're
Betsy.
human beings. We're not robots.
Yeah.
And I told people, I did a video. Don't tell Josh and I to be strong. Our loved one's dying. We're allowed to cry. We're allowed to grieve. And I did a show by myself called "I Don't Need Your Permission to Grieve."
There, I was just gonna
And
say,
we were talking earlier.
yes, I was
You're
just gonna
breaking
say
up, Dee.
that, Betsy, that, it's a shame the way society has it, that they think we have to have permission to grieve or cry, or there are times that you don't even have permission to do it. They don't want to hear it or they don't want to know about it. So there's the con about it. There's the advantage. Go ahead and grieve and cry because you give yourself permission. But then we have society over here saying, no, if you're going to do it, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know about it.
Yeah, that's right. I had someone tell me 2 weeks after Matt died to stop talking about Matt and I should talk about a cure. And I'm like, I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to find a cure. And don't ever tell me not to speak about my husband. Don't ever say that to me. Because Matt is the reason and my inspiration of why I went in my car. He is the catalyst behind chatting with Betsy. He's the reason for #kick Alzheimer's ass movement. He's my inspiration of why I do what I do. And I will never stop talking about Matt. And if you lost a loved one, do not stop talking about your loved one. Post pictures on their birthday. I do. I celebrate my
Tell
anniversary.
stories.
I even buy, yeah, I show pictures. I even buy Matt a birthday cake, and we sing to Matt, Josh, and I happy birthday. People want to think I'm cuckoo. I don't care.
I do the
I don't
same
care.
thing for my son Tim, and I do the same thing for my mother. And my siblings think, oh, because she's stuck on mommy. Well, the thing is, I'm not stuck on how she died. I'm stuck on my wonderful memories I have of my mother.
Mhm.
Why can't I not talk about her? And I one sister says, you need to let go of the past. Stop talking about the past. But you have to understand something with most people, if it wasn't for our past and our life experience with what we had done in the past, we wouldn't be who we are today. It is part of our story. So I think that lady that um, motivated you and invited you to come and share your story and then share your story about Matt, go for it. Do it. Because
um,
you
I
need as a
my
not as a wife, not only as a wife or a mother, but you're a caregiver, and now you are a storyteller, and you use your story as a way to advocate and motivate to how to help other people so they don't have to go through that bitter experience that sometimes that you went through. So talk about Matt. He's your reason
um,
who you are today.
yes, I had I had the home hospice from hell experience. Um, so I recommend that people, if you can afford to hire someone to help you navigate hospice, do that. Um, we have to speak up for those who can't,
Yes.
and that's what I did. The social worker from hospice came to my house because I called up hospice too much, because I
Oh,
kept telling them that Matt was agitated and the medicine wasn't working, and they didn't believe me. So they were giving him more of the same. Then the social worker had the nerve to tell me that, because I said Matt had a headache, and she had the nerve to tell me, no, he couldn't possibly have a headache. That's the Seroquel giving him noises in his head. Really? How do you know what a dying brain feels like? Who are you to say he can't have a headache? Um, the way people treat those with dementia is an absolute disgrace. And it's a disgrace that at a time when I needed support and comfort, all I got was aggravation and stress, which left me with caregiver post traumatic stress. And yes, it's a real thing. Caregivers do have you could call it post traumatic stress disorder, post traumatic stress injury, whatever you want to call it. It's real. It's being recognized now. Hallelujah. Because people have it. A lot of caregivers have it. It's traumatic watching your loved one die. And then you add on top of that that people are not supportive, they don't believe you, and then they throw on top of that, and I know they might mean well, be strong. What does that even mean? Um, so I want to tell your audience, please don't say that to anyone. What a caregiver wants, or what anyone grieving, whether they were a caregiver or not, just listen to people without judgment. I wrote a poem, What a Caregiver Needs. What a caregiver needs is 2 ears to hear them, a shoulder to put their head on, and 2 arms to give them a hug. You can't fix the situation. We're not asking anyone to fix the situation, whether it's caregiving or we're grieving. You can't fix it. Just hold space for us without judging. Even to sit there and say, I don't know what to do for you, but let me just be here and hold your hand. That would even help. And please don't tell people get over it, because there's no getting over losing a loved one. The pain changes and you move forward, but you don't ever get over it. Unless, of course, you didn't like the person, and that's totally different. But grieving is individual, and everyone grieves differently. Um, I like to integrate my living and my grieving together. Matt will be gone, it'll be 4 years in January. And Josh and I have a tradition. We go out now for Thanksgiving. I can't cook Thanksgiving dinner on Thanksgiving anymore. Maybe eventually I will. Right now I can't. Thanksgiving was Matt's last holiday meal with us. And I cook Thanksgiving dinner on Christmas Eve. I started a new tradition. Do what's comfortable for you. And holiday time's right around the corner. And people get very depressed around holidays. Um, and I have a double whammy because not only are holidays sad, but Matt was dying during the holidays. Matt died on New Year's Day. So it's doubly, if that's a word, hard for me. And you got to do what's comfortable for you. You know, avoid triggers. I'm now at the point where I can hear Christmas music. I'll cry, but I can tolerate hearing it. When the first Christmas without Matt, I couldn't even, I had to run out of the department store. A department store. I could not listen to the music that we danced to. I couldn't do it. I would start crying. Um, Giving away the clothes, the possessions. Do it when it's comfortable for you. Unless, of course, you have to move and pack up. Like, if they were in an apartment or a nursing home and you have to take care of their stuff, that's a different story. But at home, it took me a little over a year to clean out Matt's closet. I couldn't do it. I gave away some possessions and became too upset. Excuse me. I couldn't do it. So you do what's comfortable for you. And I still have some of Matt's possessions. And I'm not going to give them away. And I don't have to. There's no rules, folks, that's saying that you have to give everything away. I have Matt's hats on a counter. I'm going to keep them there. I like looking at them. And you know what? I talk to Matt every day, like he's sitting right here next to me. And I get
do the
signs
same
from
thing.
Matt.
I do the same thing.
Do you get signs?
Betsy. Yeah, I do the same thing, and it may sound like to other people who don't understand that type of grief may think we're crazy, but we're not. I mean, it's people have to realize that as caregivers, we developed, like with me with my son, developed a relationship or a friendship that you may not have done if they were normal and not sick. You would still have that relationship, but for some reason, as a caregiver, they become more special to us. They have more meaning to us. There's more love because their life is not the same, and your life is not the same. But I do the same thing. You were talking earlier about doing a cake or sharing an anniversary about them. I did the same thing with my mother. She, in the early 70s, when Dairy Queen just first came out, she loved those pineapple milkshakes. So I mean, her birthdays and her age anniversary, I go to Dairy Queen and I get her pineapple milkshake. It doesn't taste the same like it did in the early 70s, but that doesn't matter. It's the thought that counts. And sometimes with Timothy, he loved carrot cake, so I would get a carrot cake and I would share it with my dog Lizzie. Because we're celebrating Timothy. There's nothing wrong to talk about them, to share stories about them. One of the reasons why, Betsy, I got into teaching how to be an effective comforter is because I don't know if you ever experienced this or not, but I went through two pastors. Every time I brought up Timothy's name, they were gone. They disappeared. Where'd you go? I'm talking to you. They were so, but these are pastors. They were still so uncomfortable with the fact that my son died that they, for some reason, couldn't grasp that that comforting zone to have that conversation. So, and then you think, okay, I think you told me this. We even have relatives who don't comprehend, and then, but at the time of our loved one's passing, they're saying, "Oh, Betsy, if you need anything, give me a call, and I'll be glad to be there. Anything you need, give me a call." But yet, when we call them or email or text them, they don't respond. So not only are we dealing with the grief of losing our loved one, not just because of the illness that they have, because as you know, with Alzheimer's, they change. They're not, their behavior and everything changes. So you, in a sense, you lose them on that, and then you physically lose them. This story still means, and I think you mentioned this, it's what motivates you, what got you involved in doing something. Like, just lost Betsy. So I'm going to continue and hope she comes back on. It's the reason why I teach this class is because I want to teach people how to become effective comforters. I want them to know how to, oh, she's back, thank God. I want them to know how to, what properly say, what's the appropriate statements or when to say, because there are some statements that may be appropriate, but the timing may be different, you know? So it's just, you know, I know you brought up that what bothers you is when people say to be strong. To you, because of who you are, that may be, I'm trying to find the right word for that, but for others it might be what they need. You know, that might be something to motivate who they are or to help them get out of that depression or whatever. But to you it might have a totally different meaning. So I know for you, you were a caregiver to your spouse. How long were you two married?
39 years.
Wow. And
Yeah.
at one point, when did the Alzheimer's kick in?
Matt was 56
Wow, he
when
was
he was
young.
diagnosed. Yeah, he had early onset and he died at the age of 66.
Oh, so 10 years.
Yeah.
So in a sense, there was a point where there was your husband that you loved so much right there. And then as the years went by, you slowly watched your husband die. Not physically, but mentally and emotionally. You know, you lose that personality. Well, it all depends because when I was taking care of Judy, I got into watching or taking care of her soon after, a couple years after she was diagnosed with it. But it was obvious she had it. But yet, she still remembered how to kneel down and pray. And in a lot of sense, she still remembered her brothers and sister-in-laws. So
It was you're breaking up the I agree with you. I learned a deep unconditional love that I never had prior. Like, not that I didn't love Matt, I did, but such a deep unconditional love. And Josh also learned a deep unconditional love for his dad. And, we could teach our children lessons, valuable life lessons in caregiving. And I
Well,
did
not
not
just
like
not
it
just
when
caregiving,
people would tell Josh,
not Betsy, not just for that
I
caregiving,
didn't.
but teach them what you just said. The key words: unconditional love. That is really
Mm-hmm.
what the key thing right there. Unconditional love. That's that's where you, not only as a wife, but you as a caregiver, knew how to keep that attachment for the proper care and treatment for him.
Yes. Yeah. And I didn't like when people would tell Josh, like, well, I mean, my mother's old school, God bless her. That's how she grew up, right? Um, to be strong for me. I said, don't tell Josh to be strong for me. He does not have to be strong. I don't need for him to have a nervous breakdown. And you know what? We are models for our children and other people. People would say, oh, I don't let my family see me cry. I have heard people say, I got to be different in front of my family because they can't handle my grief. Well, I know everyone's different. You know what? I don't care if you can't handle my grief. That's not my problem. And I think that we should be able to feel. Uh, to mention our loved one's name. We so that's no shock. You can say their name. Share memory.
Oh, we just lost her again. I think she was having issues with her connections. But it's true what she was saying that, every caregiver, it depends where their emotions are and where that unconditional love is for that loved one. Or even like for me, Judy was not really a relative of mine, but I treated her like she was my mother, and I took care of her like she was my mother. And even though she wasn't my mother in blood, she was my mother in emotion. So I she had that Alzheimer's that she developed before I came in, and thankfully I would catch her on her knees praying for her family. Um, I helped her when I first got there. Betsy, she was not eating meals. She was pacing the floors and only snacking. And so I had to get her to sit down and eat food, a dish of food, which was a hard time. It was like talking to a child that they needed to eat and how important the food was for them. And but still, that just losing her was like losing my mother all over again. Because, like Betsy said, that's the unconditional love that you develop for this person. She developed it because of it's her husband. She has a son. So that is her reward and experience. But for me, it was for my son. And although we learned how to deal with anticipatory grief, it's not the same when they pass, because you go from anticipatory grief to the actual emotional loss grief. And that changes the whole status of your emotions, your mental health, and a lot of stuff. And that's why between Betsy and I, we were talking earlier, how it is very important to teach not only our relatives and our friends and our church family, but even our employers,
Yes.
the community, how to properly comfort people. She talked about earlier, just be present. Even if you don't know what to say or do, just be present. She may need your shoulder to cry on, or she may just want you to be there, even just to hold her hand. And Betsy, just so you know, it's okay to give yourself permission to cry in the public, in front of anybody. I know there have been times soon after Timothy died, I would be in Walmart or Target, and something in there would trigger that memory, and all of a sudden I would start crying. You know,
Yeah.
it's okay to give yourself permission. And if people look at you weird, just say, I'm grieving for the loss of my loved one, the loss of my husband, or the loss of my son, or whatever. And then they would sort of get that little light and realize she's not crazy, she's just grieving, you know. So, yes, everybody grieves differently. That's true, even with anticipatory grief. But the key thing that Betsy brought out that I think it is so important is that unconditional love that you develop for that person. That is two. I'm going to make that the two key words of this podcast: unconditional love, because it's that is how we are able to get through our anticipatory grief. No matter what anybody says or what they do, that's your unconditional love for that loved one. And nobody, not even God, can take that away from you. Right?
Yes. And
So,
you know what, Dee, people don't understand that when our loved ones die, our love does not die for them. We still love our loved ones. And we
hence
miss
why we
them.
still do birthdays. Hence why we still do age anniversaries.
Yeah.
Hence why we tell stories. Hence why we keep bringing up their name.
Yes.
Right?
That's right. And you know what? I like that I'm seeing more on Facebook that people are showing pictures and honoring their loved one, anniversary and birthday. And I like to think that, you know what? I help them and encourage them to do that. Why can't we?
Yes.
You know, like your son lived, Matt lived. Why can't we celebrate their life? Why can't we talk about them? What are we supposed to do? Just
Exactly.
forget that they lived? That's not going to happen, folks. It's not going to happen.
Exactly.
Why should Dee start
Exactly.
talking about her son? Why? She doesn't have to. Why should I have to start talking about Matt? Because you can't handle it? Not my problem.
Yeah.
Not Dee's problem. You can't handle, that she talks about her son. That's a part of her. Matt's a part of me.
Yes.
It doesn't end at
Yes.
death, folks. It doesn't.
That's right. That's right.
See, that's my Jersey girl.
Yeah. That's right. That's exactly right. So I mean, that's really important. That unconditional love is the reason why we keep talking about them, because their memory is still alive. They may be physically gone, but their memory is still. I remember, Betsy, one time soon after a year, it was after Timothy's death, and I can't remember, it was a year or two. There was a pastor that came and spoke at our church, and he was saying that they don't exist. And I remember really feeling hurt internally that he would say that our loved ones don't exist. And so after church, I met up with him and his wife. And I told him, that's the worst thing you can tell someone, that our loved ones don't exist. When they were here alive, they exist. Their memories, their names, everything still exists. And I said, in the matter, a lot of people will not understand that the true amount of grief when you lose a child or a spouse or a sibling. That it's like you're getting electrocuted. How can people say that? Why do people say that? It's just like it shakes us emotionally when they say that our loved ones do not exist. They do exist. And I
Yeah,
told
they
them,
do. And you know what's another thing, Dee? People should never say to someone, especially they haven't experienced it, oh, I know how you feel. No, you don't know. You do not know. Dee lost a son. I don't know how Dee feels. I won't even say, I know how you feel because I don't know. And a selfish part of me doesn't want to know because I don't want to lose my son to know how that feels.
yes,
And
yes, yes.
even if you lost a child, you could relate, but you don't know how someone feels or someone loses a spouse how they feel. And please don't tell people, well, they're in a better place. They're at peace. Yes, they might be
Yeah,
in a better place, but they're not with
yes,
us.
yes.
Okay. I once did a
Yes,
snack
that's
show
so
once.
true, Betsy. Oh my God. That's so funny because I do teach that in my class. I say that's the worst thing you can say because, especially if it's a parent who lost a child, they don't want to hear that their child is in a better place. They want their child here right now, alive. And even if they are in a better place, because that's good that they're in a better place, but still, I want him here right now with me. So I understand that is so true. That's yeah, and you have to find a way
Yeah,
to
I
be
kind of
nice
tell
to
it like it
someone when they
is.
say that, because that's really hard to admit. That's yes, that's one of it, Betsy. You hit that one right on the nail. Don't tell anyone who lost someone that they were in a better place, because even if we know internally that they are, we still rather believe that they're right here with us, you know. And it depends
Hmm.
also. I think also, Betsy, it depends when they tell you that. Because if they tell you that at the time of the loss and the funeral, we don't want to hear that. But if they tell you that maybe 10 years down the road, your attitude and everything may be different. You know, your
Right.
emotions may be different. So it's not going to feel as bad, you know. But at the time, that's the worst thing you can say to someone. When
Yeah.
I was studying, I've been studying different cultures of how different people grieve for their loved ones, and it's amazing when that thing comes right up, how the griever responds to that. You know, it's just
Hmm.
people don't want to hear that at the time of loss. They really don't. You know, it's just Betsy, you hit it on the net. You know what? I think Betsy, you and I should have a workshop on
Oh,
this.
yeah, that'd be
You know,
great.
we should have a workshop on this and do some classes, like a 1 day workshop, and every hour is a different thing. You know, but I think that would be great because if we can start really teaching the community, society, how to properly grieve and how to properly comfort someone. You know, it's
Yeah, because we're not taught how to grieve at
no.
all. Like my mom, God bless her, she's 93. When my brother died, she was 91.
Uh, I can't believe I did that. I'm sorry, I hit the wrong thing.
Oh, were you able to hear me, Dee?
I hear you now. Go ahead. You were talking about
Oh, my
your
mom
brother.
was 90 or 91 when my brother died. And I had suggested grief counseling. and she bit my head off. I don't tell anyone my feelings, no one's business, because she grew up in that time during World War II. You did not discuss your feelings. I was even taught in growing up, you don't talk about your feelings. I'm the black sheep of my family. I'm an embarrassment to them because I
I
tell it
am
like it
too.
is. I go
Yeah,
against the
you call it
grain.
out. You call it out.
I call
Yes.
it out. I went for I talk about mental health issues. I talk about grieving. I'm on social media talking about it. And my brother died. It shook me to my core. I couldn't believe I lost a sibling. I couldn't believe he died. Um, and I told my mom, I don't know how you feel. I'm not going to say I know. I don't know. But you got to sit with your pain and go through it. And a lot of people, they don't want to face their feelings with grieving. If you don't
And
validate
that's
your
what brings
feelings
them
and
down.
acknowledge how you feel, it's going to bite you right in your rear end. It's going to come out
Yes.
in an illness or something. You need to validate how you feel. And you know what, folks? It's okay to have a meltdown. It's okay to break down. Um, People think, oh, I got to be strong for my child. I got to be strong for this one, that one. No, you don't. You do not. I'm telling you, you do not. I cried in front of my son. I let my son cry in front of me. My son was, let's say, Josh is 38, so he was 34 when his dad died. Why can't he cry? And I still talk about grieving. How you doing, Josh? How you doing this time of year? We need to let our children tell us how they feel about grieving, about caregiving. And I'll tell you, folks, I'm not, I don't have any education when it comes to grieving or anything. It's my own experience. But when you cut communication off with your child, they're going to go to someone else, and you may not like what that other person has to say to them. Do you want your child going on to the street? Do you want them taking drugs and alcohol because they can't tell you how they feel because they're embarrassed or you're going to
Yes.
shame them? Stop the shaming.
Yes.
We got to stop the stigma of mental health and
Yes.
grieving. We have a right
Yes.
to validate and say how we feel. And if you don't like it, guess what? I don't care, and you don't have to like it. That's it.
Yeah, that
You
is
can
so
tell.
true. I do agree with you on that, Betsy, because the old days, that was something that we had to shut up. You can't talk about. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
reason why we ended up with a lot of alcoholics or drug users because they weren't allowed to talk about it. So they didn't want to think about it. So they have to numb that
Yep.
thinking and those thoughts by getting rid of them. And the only way they knew how to get rid of it was the alcohol or the drugs or both, because they were never taught how to talk about it. And one thing I do want to say for men, it is okay to grieve. It is okay to talk about whatever is weighing you down. Don't let it become like a volcano and you suddenly blow up. It's
Yep.
okay to talk about it, to grieve. It's okay. And the most important thing, it is okay to cry.
Right.
Don't let that society say, "Oh, be a big boy and pull up your pants and stop." Hello, talk about it, grieve, let it out, because I can assure you and trust you. Once you relieve all that, the alcohol and drugs will mean nothing more to you. Because the only reason why you're drinking or taking drugs is because you're trying to numb that pain. Because you were told
Yep.
never to talk about it, and that's what I think, and I believe that's why we have so many people going through this mental health, and
Yep.
most likely why there's so much suicide.
Yes. Absolutely, Dave. You want to know why men commit suicide? because society doesn't allow them to talk about their feelings. And I talk about this on my show all the time. Those of us who have boys, we need to teach our boys it's okay to cry. It's okay to tell your feelings in a constructive, positive environment. Why do we
Yes.
shame people? We have to stop. My
Yes.
son went to a wake. The woman was the same age as me. As a matter of fact, we went to grammar school together. And he said, Mom, I cried at so and so's wake. I said, That's okay, Josh. That shows you're compassionate. That shows that you
Yes.
care. That's beautiful. That's nothing to be ashamed of.
He has
We have to
empathy.
stop shaming
Yes.
people.
Exactly.
You know,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
that
Yes. Yes. Yes.
you know,
You're hitting
men.
hitting it right on.
Yeah, I mean, men come back from war with. Of course, they're not going to come back the same as they when they went, because the things that they saw.
Yes.
And
Yes.
like, we need to talk about it. I interviewed somebody, and we need to have these discussions, D, about post traumatic injury, whatever you want
Yes.
to call it. It's real. And people numb themselves. You're right. Drugs, alcohol, eating, even shopping. I know I'm guilty. After Matt died, I just wanted the cocoon. I bought pajamas I didn't need because I wanted comfort. And then I addressed it.
And before Timothy died, dealing with the anticipatory grief, I was doing the emotional eating. I was stuffing myself because whenever I started to really start feeling something, I thought that emotional eating would cure it, and it doesn't. It just
Mhm.
all it does is affects your health in a bad way. It's not a good thing. It doesn't. A good thing doesn't come out of the drugs, the alcohol, the emotional eating, the cocoon. But that's the way society teaches us how to deal with this. That's not the appropriate way to deal with it. But it's okay because society says it's okay. But guess what? Society is wrong.
Yes, I have offered people whose spouses have died. I said, well, you could talk to me. I can't. I'll start crying. So that's okay. And I got into an argument with someone's friend on Facebook because the woman's, she said, oh, I hope I'm strong enough to do my mother's eulogy. I hope I don't cry. I said, it's okay if you cry. You don't have to be strong. And this person said, don't tell her that, blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, I am going to tell her that. She can't cry at her mother's funeral. She doesn't have to be strong. That's nonsense.
But
And I'll
also,
tell
but
anyone that.
But Betsy, the other thing about that, so we want to also make sure people understand she doesn't have to be strong about it in that moment, but something important. She's human. It doesn't mean she's
Right.
weak.
That's right. That's right. Crying, folks, is not a sign of weakness. Actually, it's a sign of strength. It's a sign of strength to go for help, for therapy. It's not weakness. We all need
God,
help and at
yes,
some point. And
yes,
folks, don't judge. Do not judge people because they go for counseling, because you don't know how you're going to deal with the loss, how you're going to
yes,
deal with the illness. No one knows until it happens to them. And we need to
yes,
get these conversations out. COVID, one good thing about COVID is that it brought mental health out to the forefront, and people are
yes.
talking about it, and celebrities are talking about it. But hello, Betsy's been talking about it for years. And I talked about abandonment of a caregiver. People got a taste of abandonment
Yeah,
isolation during COVID. They didn't like it. Well, think about how a caregiver feels, because even
yeah.
without the pandemic, people do abandon a caregiver and they do live in isolation. I'm on my soapbox
That is
again.
so true. And the other thing I wanted to make sure everybody else understand, God created our feelings. He created us to be compassionate, loving, caring, forgiving people. And he also created the feelings of it's okay to be happy and it's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. He created these tears. These tears are a language. He created the tears for a reason. So don't be ashamed to let tears come out of your eyes. They're there for a reason. God created that for us to use that. He created our feelings to be happy, to be sad, to be angry, anything, you know? And then the other thing, it's okay to be angry at God when something tragedy happens or a loved one just suddenly dies. It's okay to be angry at God. It is not a sin to be angry at God. What becomes a sin is when you take that anger out and you hurt somebody. That's when it becomes a sin. But if you take that anger and do what many of us do, we turn it around and we do something good with it. You know, like
Exactly.
we talk about them, their stories, their names, or some people create foundations, some people create nonprofits. So, it's turn it out, turn that anger around and do something positive in memory to honor that loved one. But don't take it and go, because I know that it's very hard when your child or a sibling or whatever is killed or murdered, and you got that resentment and that anger, and you want to go and kill that person. It's not a sin to think about it. It's a sin to do it. When you do actually do it, when the Bible talks about this, and it's really important that we understand this because God created us to be loving, to compassion, to be kind, to be forgiven, to show empathy. But the devil had to come along and change that. So we can choose to be on God's side and be happy, or we can be on Satan's side and do some damage, and that's why it becomes a sin, because you're doing damage. But Betsy, one thing we need to get together and decide when we can do this workshop. Maybe after the holidays, and because I think it would really be important for people to learn how to be an effective comforter, to not abandon, like what happened during COVID, but not to abandon them even when there's that loss, because that is grief, folks. That is grief. Again, the grief is already um, grieving on the loss of their loved one. But when you abandon them because you're uncomfortable with the loss, now they're really grieving because they trusted you as a friend to be there, and then you're not. So hopefully she'll come back on. So I think what we're going to do is and I want you to be excited about this, and I want you to spread the word. Because I think what we're going to do is, like, after the holidays, we're going to do a 1 day. Oh, she's back on. Good.
I'm back.
We'll do like a 1 day workshop, and it may let's just say hypothetically it may be an all day, like 8 hours. It may not. It may only be a few hours. But let's get together after the holidays and do this workshop. We may need it as 2 days. I don't know, but I'm just throwing out ideas because it's really, really important that we not only learn from our life experience of what we had to deal with. There's going to be so many other people that's going to come in and share their stories too, and what they went through as a caregiver or as a griever. So we're going to throw in how to become an effective comforter, how to help people when they're going through anticipatory grief. which is like what Betsy had to go through. I had to go through it with Judy. Right now I'm doing it with John. I had to do it with my son Tim. And before Tim, there were many other people I was taking care of too. So anticipatory grief is a very hard thing, even for families, to try and understand how to be there for the caregiver. Because you have to remember something. Even though that person has unconditional love for that person they're caring for, they still need to take a break.
Mm-hmm.
It may be a couple of hours, it may be a day, it may be a couple of days, but they need to take a break because they need to emotionally and physically take care of themselves first. Because when we don't take care of ourselves first, guess what? Then, in a sense, we're no good to our loved one that we're hoping to care for, you know? And I know from experience, I don't know about you, Betsy, I know from experience as a caregiver that I had to go through was the cancer twice as a caregiver. And now, I mean, I'm helping take care of John because, we're friends and he was married to Judy at one point. But I still, in a sense, I almost look at him as my dad, you know? And
Yeah.
I'm still dealing like with that anticipatory grief. His daughters are dealing with that. They dealt with that when they lost their mother from Alzheimer's. But now their dad with some dementia, not a lot. But it's just anticipatory grief can drain you. It could
Yes.
physically and emotionally drain you. And if the caregiver does not get some help or take a break, I know there were a couple of times, Betsy, I don't know if you did. There were a couple of times I did take a break and I left the state. I left Florida and went to go visit friends or whatever because I needed that to put myself back together. And
Yeah.
health wise,
Yeah.
um, it's
It's
so
you
that's a
hit
good
on.
thing. That's
Yeah,
a
you
good
hit
thing we
on.
can add to the workshop is how to take care of ourselves as a caregiver. You know.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of good points, Dee. The anger, I can relate to that. I turned my anger into a passion. I couldn't let my
Yes.
anger destroy me. I wasn't brave going into my car. People say, "Oh, Betsy, you're brave." No, I'm very self-conscious and
Yeah.
don't like to be in front of people, believe it or not. But my passion took over. My cause to raise awareness on this disgusting disease uh, took precedence. So I didn't care how I looked or what people thought. And it did become my passion. And self-care, self-care, this is going to be harsh, folks, but this is how I feel. Self-care is a matter of life and death. That's how serious it is for the caregiver. Because if you don't take care of
Mandatory.
yourself,
It should be
you're not going
mandatory.
to be able to enjoy
Yes.
life after caregiving. And you have every right to enjoy life after caregiving, during and after caregiving. And I know getting that balance is hard because you feel guilty you're not with your loved one, but you need to recharge your batteries. You need that. I'll tell you, Dee, I thank God. I
Yes.
give God the glory that I made it through 10 years of caregiving. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. We're crying. People forget the shortest verse in the Bible is Jesus wept. Jesus wept when Lazarus died,
Yes.
and it's okay to cry. And um, and yeah, I wanted to say that, but we have to take care of ourselves. It's important.
So even if he was like that holy one, that Messiah, he was still human when he was here. So he still had those emotions that he
Mm-hmm.
could use and knew how to use it. So when Lazarus died, or anybody he knew that had died, when Lazarus died, he wept. But when the little girl died, he knew for some reason to take that emotion and turn it around like he did with Lazarus. So if he saw what he could do to help himself and others when Lazarus died and was resurrected, so he knew that God gave him that authority to even for other people, like the daughter that died, and he told the father to go back because she's awake. It was that kind of faith that Jesus had, and even in God, and that all that was the whole idea of that was to teach people to trust their faith in Jesus and God of the miracles that He can do. So if and he when He was here, we have to remember He was human, so He did deal with. He made it not well in a sense. You couldn't think of it, Betsy. In a sense, his disciples. He was a caregiver to his disciples.
Yes.
In a sense, he was. Even if he was teaching them how to be, I want to use the prophet, and that may be the wrong word, to be able to spread the word, the good news and stuff like that. But he still had to take care of them. He made sure they had food. He made sure they had shelter. He made sure that they had clothing. And he did that not only with his disciples, but he did that with his community. And that's why so many people came to him, because they had that faith that he would be there to help them. And that's what we all need to do, is have that faith that God's going to help us through that as caregivers. And, the 3 times I had the cancer, or the first 2 times, I could have been angry at God. I could have sworn at him. I could have thrown things. I could have, But instead, I looked at it as a lesson that God was trying to teach me. To, number one, be patient, to understand his plan for me. But now, all of a sudden, I just recently got diagnosed with the breast cancer. So I just like, okay, God, I know you're trying to tell me something. And I know whatever it is, it's going to be something good and wonderful. So teach me to be patient, whatever your plan is, because there's a reason why things are happening, that things fall in place. And I think because we have that mindset as a caregiver, that we all what was it that you and I talked about earlier? That it suddenly becomes a natural thing to understand what to do, that we know how to go into it with no questions asked. What was the word that you used?
Defeated?
No. There was a reason why that God created us, that passion that we have in ourselves, that we naturally somehow, like with me, and it sounds like you because you're a caregiver for Josh, right? But for me, even when Judy passed away, her ex-husband, and I was always there, and I'm still always there to help John. I take him to the bank, I take him to Walmart, I take him to his doctor's appointments. For some reason, that caregiving that I have inside me comes out naturally to any senior or any child that is sick. It's like I'm born to be a caregiver, even if I'm in denial. Like, God, I want to retire from this. I didn't want to be a caregiver forever, but yet He keeps putting me in to help with, people, and I'm like, okay, so God's trying to tell me something, to be a caregiver, and then on top of that, having to deal with the cancer number 3 now. So, but I stay positive. I can be angry at God, why, and I can ask 1,000 questions. Why me, God? Why not me?
Yeah, that's what they say. So, I heard a speaker, I don't know who it was, that said, why why not you? Maybe, we don't see the total picture. I
Yes,
interviewed someone who has terminal cancer. He's a motivational speaker. He said, I have cancer, it doesn't have me. And he's using the
that,
time that he has to help people, being a
that
motivational speaker.
that's a wonderful way to say it.
It was incredible.
And I've overcame it twice, and I believe I will overcome it again. You know, I don't think God's done with me yet. And I don't think God is done with you either, because look at the wonderful things that you have been doing in your community that is helping people to learn and understand, not only as you as his wife, but you as his caregiver, and you as his advocate. That's the other key thing as a caregiver. You're also their advocate. We mentioned this before, you're their voice.
Yes, yes. And educate yourself and loved ones, and also around,
I hear you,
so
but
that
it's
you
breaking
know
up.
what to ask.
So, Betsy,
You know,
I hope you can hear me okay. Oh, I lost her again. It may be her internet connection. Pain in the butt sometimes, right? So sorry, Lizzie. Lizzie, she knows how to get my attention. If I don't pay attention to her, she whines. Hold on a second. Come here, Lizzie. There you go. So there it is. We'll do a workshop as we'll do the workshop as a caregiver, but also implement how to be a comforter to the caregivers, to the grievers, to even the person. This is something that we forget with anticipatory grief. Not only as we as caregivers deal with anticipatory grief, but anybody in the family does. But what the key person that's dealing with anticipatory grief is the one that's sick. You'll be your son. He's probably dealing with it too. It was your husband. At the beginning, he was dealing with it until his mind couldn't help him to concept it anymore. With my son, he knew he was dying. He knew. It's just not us as
yeah, I
caregivers
believe people
that deal
do.
with it, but the people who are sick and ill, they also are dealing with anticipatory grief. So it's not. So it's important that yes, that we take care of ourselves as caregivers, but we have to also find a way to help those who are grieving, who are ill. They're grieving too. They know they're about ready to die. They know that the world that they're used to being in, and the people that they love, you know. So not only as we as caregivers need to see someone and talk to someone and take, but they the ones who are ill, they too. So you said that Josh goes and talks to somebody, so that helps him not only to deal with his grief from losing his father, but also with his disability. You know, so Betsy and I will talk about it, and you'll know, and you'll see the big graphic poster of the date that we're going to plan this workshop. We'll do it as a caregiver and to be an effective comforter, so that you understand what the caregiver goes through and how important it is to be an effective comforter, to not only as a caregiver, but also as someone who's the griever. And she mentioned it, and I mentioned it too. Do not abandon that loved one. It's bad enough that we lost our loved one, but when you disappear on them, It's sad. It is sad. So, Betsy, before we go
Yes.
off, tell us again your website, your Facebook page, your radio station, so everybody knows how to get a hold of you or where to go listen to you.
Oh, okay. You want me to do that now?
Yes.
Well, thanks for having me on, Dee. Really appreciate it. I enjoyed talking to you. You can find me on Facebook, Betsy, Betsye, Wurzel. I go by Wurzel, Wurzel. I'm on LinkedIn, and my show, Chatting with Betsy, is on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeart, YouTube. It's called Chatting with Betsy, and it's free to subscribe to.
Yes.
Oh, and my
So
support group,
that,
#Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement on Facebook.
yeah. So there you go. Here's someone that, from personal experience, can share with you how to help you, how to teach you, how to comfort you, and and most of all, how to advocate, and to teach you how to be an advocate, to teach you how to be an advocate for yourself, but teach you how to be an advocate for your loved one that you're caregiving as well.
Yes.
So we will let you know when we'll do this workshop, and we'll give you a good date, good time, so you can sit back. But just remember, the workshop, not only are we going to share and teach you this stuff, but one of the key things that's going to be really important is hearing from you so that we know how to help you. So come in with questions or suggestions or comments on that day so that we know how to be there to help you. So the participation is the key thing. It's participating, but we'll figure out how we're going to do this workshop and how long it's going to be and what we're discussing. We'll create a flyer and we'll pass it out and hope and pray that you also pass it around. So, Betsy, it's wonderful that we got together finally. I am so thankful that we had the opportunity to be here to share with everybody our experience, how important it is. Um, you really, you really hit on a nail a lot of pinpoints, a lot. Boom, exactly. And so it almost, what's the word? It confirms everything I've been saying. All you have to hear it from someone else, not just me. But when you hear it from other people, it confirms that what I've been saying is true. It's true, you know? So I can't wait. This is going to be exciting. Uh, in November, I'm doing the Unplugged Grief Ministries podcast marathon. But either in January or December, we'll do that. Not December, January or February, we'll do that workshop. And we want to be able to. Betsy really hit it on. She's really good in calling people. I do it too. But we're really good in calling people out. And that's how we learn to be better ourselves, to be better teachers, to be better coaches, to be better supporters, to better motivating people. You know, that's what she's been doing. She's been advocating and motivating people and teaching them. And you also do a lot of the Alzheimer's um, research and um, fundraising and stuff like that because she's being Matt's voice. And Matt is using his wife to share his story. And we need to hear his story because there may be something in his story that's going to help you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's always something in someone's story like what she just shared with us tonight, there's always something in that that's gonna. I mean, Betsy, I am thankful for you because you opened my mind and opened my eyes again and reminded me, a lot of stuff. And I think that's how we also learn. I'm learning some things from you that I didn't realize that I missed. And you might be learning something from me. And that's why we have this podcast and why we share these different people, because sometimes someone's experience may be the very thing that you need to hear. And you said some things that was the very thing that I needed to hear.
Thank you.
So that's the wonderful reason why I bring people on, because I need to. She probably called me out, and I realized she was doing it, but called me out on some stuff which I needed to hear. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Thank you.
I'm glad we got together and did this. So it's going on 8:30. I want to go ahead and let you go. Um, and then this is going to go up on YouTube and Facebook. And hopefully a lot of people will respond to it, comment to it. So God be with you, Betsy.
Thank you.
I hope that between now and then you have the wonderful rest of October. And I hope your holidays, your Thanksgiving and your Christmas, will actually be a joyous one for you, because you deserve it. You deserve it.
Thank you. Likewise, Dee.
Yeah. And sometimes we as grievers and caregivers, we think we don't deserve a lot of stuff. But we do. Like that self-care we talked about. You deserve the self-care to take time for yourself. You deserve to have a good Thanksgiving. Betsy, make a good Thanksgiving meal. And then take a picture of it showing, I did it. I made the turkey and the stuffings and the green bean casserole. I did it because you deserve it, Same for Christmas. You deserve it. Josh does too.
Thanks. Thanks for having me on, Dee.
Anytime you want to come back on, just say, hey, Dee, let's do another talk. I said, come on, Betsy. Have a wonderful evening.
I love that. Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening, Betsy.
Take care.
And everybody. Yes, thank you, everybody, for being part of our Unplugged Grief Ministries podcast. Don't forget at the end to hit the like and to subscribe. And if you want to go back and hear where Betsy is, so you can go join her as well and be part of her ministry, then you can always rewind and go back and listen to it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Have a wonderful weekend. And next week, we're going to have another special guest. You're going to love her. You're going to love this person. Betsy, I think it's Tracy that's going to be on next week. And when I had her on podcast a couple months ago, I was blown away. I was blown away at all the things I learned. So come on next week, Friday, 7 for Tracy. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Have a wonderful weekend. Don't party too much. Bye-bye. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Subscribe and like. I used to have a graphic for it. I don't know what happened to it. Good night. I just love talking to you all. I guess it's the lonely part of me. I don't know. See you next Friday. Bye-bye.